It's part 8 of Diomedes' Abridged, where previously Diomedes was absolutely annihilating the Amazons and freely taking a whole bunch of their territory, and the main conflict was up north where our other armies were struggling a bit against the Trojans. Luckily, thanks to some cheeky replenishment mechanics that are very generous to winners of battles, we end up being basically fine, so we're still on the offensive against them. Now we're doing what is effectively a siege drawout, fighting some survivors from a previous battle and a town garrison. This is going to be a big and messy battle with a weird formation. We've got some slingers nicely protected by cliffs. On their right was a line of spears. We've got our giants in the middle, and on the left we've got a pile of stuff, all of our leftovers from the last battle, including the chariots who nicely leave these trails through the grass that looks pretty good. So it's going to be pretty inefficient here on the left flank. We're facing like 2 or 3 enemy units on this hill. We've got loads of stuff just running in there looking for targets. The enemy weren't as over there as I thought they were going to be. They're more over here where I've got my line of spears. A good move because they're going to be easier for the enemy to beat, especially with matchups like this one where their swordsmen will get bonus damage against us, but they're fighting next to our cliff-protected slingers who can freely shoot into those melees. Here's another bad fight for us as our giants engage the enemy's shielded spearmen, a perfect unit for killing the giants. But the giants are mainly trying to go after all of these ranged units. We can just keep them skirmishing as usual and make sure they don't really participate in the battle. Here are some engagements we'll win but are a waste of our troops, big blobs there, barely doing anything. Our chariots though go around to cut off the escape of the enemy's ranged units and force them into melee. Here's a big rear attack from our militia, our worst possible unit. Well, the enemy are using their Trojan warriors that aren't that good either. And we do have harpies throwing jabs into this fight. Harpies are a very powerful jab unit with the range of bows, more or less, so they're nice and overpowered. They'll be doing big damage. And with those ranged units now out of the picture, the enemy's balance bar strength is effectively nothing. We just have to wait to win. Their commander's stuck in this pile of our troops somewhere. I think one of my generals goes to kill him. We've also got another enemy general who is currently beating the newly recruited commander of the main army. The commander of the trash army kills one of the enemy officers. That's nice. And then just as the battle ends, we actually lose our newly recruited commander. Very inconvenient because we were about 1 second away from ending the fight. The guy who killed him immediately shatters and leaves the field. That was a close one. Doesn't matter too much because it was just a level 1 guy brought in to replace the previously good commander who died in the last part. So we'll just get another level 1 guy to replace him, pretty much. Interestingly, if you lose your commander, you get the losing animation on the campaign map. But of course we did win, and no units were lost. We're going to replenish everything we lost soon enough, as usual. Effectively, no damage was done to us, but for that commander who can just be teleported in and replaced. All good, so we carry on in the very same turn and attack the nearby enemy settlement, grabbing some territory. In the end then, while it was a bit more of a struggle than usual, we've continued our push against the Trojans and things are looking good on this front. Back down with Diomedes. Well, things are looking good for him still. I'm trying to move him up north to get to the Trojan front because our game objective is to defeat 3 Trojan armies, but he's got plenty of Amazon territory between him and the target zone, so we might as well just keep taking it, and there we go, we just took another little bit of it. There was also a situation where I was being chased at sea by a couple of Trojan armies down to the south of Lesbos, and I've now set up for this battle. All of the trash I had sitting around in this area will engage everything the enemy has, and we have an advantage overall as it turns out. Wasn't interested in fighting that one, but we can get a win by auto-resolve, and really, it doesn't matter if we take any casualties here because these guys aren't going to see action again anytime soon. They'll easily come back to life by the time we need them. That's all good then. The threat down there is out the window. However, the Trojan threat up north remains. A full stack has appeared in our way there. We also have in our way another faction that actually blocks our land access to the next bit of Trojan territory. For whatever reason though, they were very interested in effectively taking our side by giving us military access and promising not to attack us. Handy. Wanted to use my dominance to make them actually join the war and attack the Trojans themselves. but there is a rule: you can't use dominance to force people into a war. I feel like that was probably a discovered exploit during testing or something, so they threw on that extra rule. What we're going to do for now is just set up near the enemy with a double ambush. I'd like it if they came over to me and got ambushed by my 2 stacks before we advanced. Diomedes now has something to do because I decided to move west and attack this walled settlement, which would complete a province for us. But because it has walls and a large garrison, it's an even engagement. We can't just auto-resolve this time. That said, it's also nothing too difficult. We've seen engagements like this before. We just need to pull off the usual wall attack strat. In this one it goes better than before, because when we make our vanguard deployment gamble to go up the walls in some random places, well, they're all completely clear, so we're just going to take some free wall sections. The enemy army is actually not really on the walls. Not quite sure why, but they're mostly just around the streets, and then after the fight starts they start going towards the wall. Well, it's a bit too late for the most part. Here though, they are going to scare me off. They put all of their ranged units over this gate, and while I was running towards it, I decided to nope out of there and not charge at the ranged units. We can just have a standoff and make the ranged units look at us, not doing any damage. We've also got our giants sneaking in on the other side of town because they can open a gate. And that gate is unguarded as well, so soon we'll have them on the inside. In the meantime, the enemy units do come up to challenge our wall positions. Well, we'll just have to stand there and see what we can do for now. Diomedes has gone over the wall. He was hunting for enemy commanders. Here we've got one in a nice duel. Our main breach is going to be right here, where our axemen have captured a gate. And then we rush forward to make sure the enemy aren't going to be standing on the capture point, so we keep said gate. We can start bringing our chariots and slingers through this gate. And as our chariots come down the hill, they're going to mow everything down in their way. Pretty sure they don't inflict friendly fire damage, so this is all good. A few enemies knocked down, bit of damage done, and a morale shock that gets them out of the way. Diomedes has won his first duel, but he's a bit stuck up against the wall with many Amazons around him. This is what they call the Lynx effect here in the UK. Well, we'll have to try and get out of there. Meanwhile, I've now successfully made my attack on that wall that was defended by the ranged units, because for a moment they went off the wall and then started going back on, and while they weren't there, we cheekily ran over and set the ladders up, so we are in now. We can of course charge down the other side of the wall and go after the ranged units. And the giants have successfully opened a gate. They're now going to maraud through the city, and things will get pretty good for us pretty fast. It was a nice chariot charge to try and clear some of the girls off Diomedes. He's having a really difficult time. The chariots can't get rid of the blob. You can see Diomedes doesn't have area of effect damage, and he rarely attacks and just kills like one enemy at a time. Meaning he only got like 20 kills in this whole battle despite fighting pretty much constantly. He's really just good for killing enemy officers and being a tank with his high armor, regenerating health, and really high health. He has like double the health of a regular general. Elsewhere, looks like the battle's going pretty much fine as we just charge through the streets dispatching ranged units, and it comes down to a bit of a brawl on the capture point where the mood lighting really sets the mood, I suppose, for the enemy as they're being pummeled in the rain by giants and stamped into the mud. All looking pretty good. Nice Bronze Age action. So we grab this victory and grab this settlement. It was a bit of a distraction really, because this place wasn't technically on the way to our northern destination. We had to go west to get here. But as mentioned, it completes a province and I just felt like doing it anyway. So there we have it, another capture. We'll move on towards the real destination next. Now a cheeky move from the Trojans, taking us right into another battle. They bypassed that whole stuff I'd set up on the front line. In order to attack this group of reinforcements, these are the guys who were defending down south, our piles of trash, wanted to bring them up to help, but it appears they've been intercepted by an army that's a mix of trash and good units, so it's a balanced engagement, but we have more numbers. We're going to set up with a couple of hidden flanks, but the terrain won't help us all that much. Firstly, my right flank, where I'd hidden my units, is right up against the line on the edge of the battlefield, and there's not very much space here between us and where the enemy's main force is approaching. That means they're going to be discovered quite quickly. We've got a very large hidden left flank that gets discovered immediately as well. But the problem here is not the discovery, it's just that I've put all these units over here and there's not really much going on. The cliffs in the center of the map have funneled the enemy towards my center right, so our left wing isn't doing very much. Now here's my ambush group getting discovered and, worse, getting attacked by spearmen. The giants in the group will be weak against that, not ideal. Here's the start of the main battle. My only goal here is to survive long enough so that we can do some stuff with our flanking sections. And spearmen are pretty good at that. They have their stats mainly spec'd into melee defense, so just standing there and dying slower than other units is their speciality. That will help us out. Some giants have broken free of the stuff out on the flank and are now walking towards those slingers. I guess giants can't run in a forest or something, I bet that's a rule. Leaving behind just our Argivay swordsmen. We don't have very many of them because they're already nearly dead from previous battles, but they do have a bonus against the 2 spear units they're fighting, so that is something. On the other flank, we're taking down a couple of enemy units just with sheer numbers and surround and pound. We also have some sword advantages against spears going on around here too. That will free up some more units in the near future. As for the enemy's range stuff, I've got my young spears now chasing after them. They're not very useful for anything else in this battle, so they'll just dispatch the ranged troops by making them go to the back of the map. That freed up some other stuff for a rear attack on the main fights, where the grinds are going on, we're taking losses. Looks like I've got a few reserves to pour into these gaps. Those militia won't do very well, but they're there and that's all that matters for now. Here this sword rear attack will do very well against these spearmen who are losing decisively against them from the beginning. That's all good. I put some axemen here on our right flank as it looked like we were going to get taken down. I've also though got some giants in the fight. We're facing some strong enemy units, but with all of our stuff piled up here it's going to be enough. Our two-handed axes are in there as well. It should do well against good units that have armor stats. Soon we break the unit on the end of the line and that will of course begin some folding action where we'll soon be able to rear attack virtually everything else as well. The enemy centre just about loses and will do the same thing to the nearby blob, just surrounding and pounding. And very rapidly this battle will start to go well. We even get some troops over to save our Argivay swordsmen who were just barely still alive at this point. We rear attack their spears with our swords. Ideal. Now they're being sandwiched by units that are strong against them and their armies getting owned, so their morale will be low. And indeed we finish off this pocket right here. Heralding the end of the battle in general, we'll now be chasing the enemy to the edges of the map to take down this army as much as possible. This is a very useful victory for us because they've sacrificed their frontline forces against my reserve, so all the losses we took don't really matter and we didn't take many losses anyway because units weren't destroyed, and you know what that means, we'll effectively take 0 losses by the time we land somewhere. And now our frontline armies are untouched, they've replenished as well. We're going to have some momentum after this. We've got another battle going on far away because the Amazons are attacking the south end of the territory I've been stealing from them. There was a little pocket of Amazons down here that I didn't bother to kill on my drive north, and it looks like I'm being punished for that. I can't auto-resolve this battle, which is annoying. Only really because I already know I'm going to win. We've seen this battle effectively several times in this campaign. We just do the thing where you defend a couple of entrances, send some ranged units outside to shoot the enemy in the back, and then wait. Looks like I also did another young spears running towards the edge of the map thing to dispatch some of their ranged stuff. So there we go, we can see our slingers raining shots onto an enemy blob. Once they're softened up, I'm sending some axes in to finish them off with the rout. Then the slingers will do the same thing to another blob, moving this battle towards a victory. Easy enough. The risk though is that the enemy will do this again or with bigger armies, so we're going to keep that in mind in a second. In the meantime, Diomedes moves north and attacks another Amazon settlement. So. They've got a general here, well that's just another thing for us to kill with an easy auto-resolve. Now we're finally going to end our war with the Amazons after this capture, because as you might gather we don't really need to be attacking them for this campaign. I was just doing it because it's sort of convenient and to get revenge for the times they attacked me. We're finally going to peace out and get some resources off them along the way. This will allow Diomedes to force march along the coast and after a couple of turns be up at the front line with the Trojans where he needs to be for us to progress. I do also have a stack of trash that's going to defend the southern tip of our empire, because the Amazons will probably declare war on me again at some point, so I just thought I'd have some more trash around there. The reason I have so much trash everywhere, by the way, is because we're getting rich from conquering the Amazons, but I don't have any military buildings pretty much anywhere except for at Argos. So I can't really make good units. We're just going to spam the lowest and the slightly less lowest, the tier 2 units like light spears, and that will do for now. As you can see, we finish off the Trojans that we mostly killed in that previous battle. I could then sail on with one of the armies and actually make an attack against that port to the north. I figured we'd just take it right here, but it was quite heavily garrisoned, and our army's not very good, so we can't really make particularly cheeky offensive moves. Obviously that attack would be very possible, especially because it's an attack we could exploit the AI. But I didn't feel like doing it. It's one of these things where we could play things more efficiently if I wanted to put more real-life time into it, but I don't. Now, stalling my offensive slightly is the presence of the Dardanians, another pro-Troy faction from the north that we can't really see right now, who have sent an army down to interfere. I couldn't force them out of the war, but I also didn't want to go over there and fight them. So instead we're going to do a compromise plan. First, we send our good army to go and besiege this next town, with Hector inside, the enemy faction leader. That's only a balanced setup, another situation where if I could really be bothered, we'd probably win just fine, but I can't be bothered, and we don't need to be bothered. We can bring up our backup army of trash, which is now highly leveled up and actually quite good trash. That makes the balance bar super far in our favour. Down goes Hector with no questions asked, and we didn't use up all of our movement on that trash army, so they can go back to where they were before. Meaning both of our settlements here are heavily defended, that enemy army can make a choice about which one to attack, and maybe we'll take them down, and I haven't wasted any movement points going over there to kill them. We're still on track. Of course, next turn I can go and help with that siege at the port, and kill them without having to bother doing the manual resolve this turn, which is what I'm thinking. Anything to avoid actually playing the game at this stage. We're close enough to winning that we don't need to do anything particularly optimal in order to win as far as I know, so we'll take it easy. For example, we get sallied against where I had that siege, again a chance to kill the enemy and take the settlement, but I don't want to, so we'll just go stand somewhere else, and in the future there'll probably be an easier opportunity to take it, and it doesn't matter that we're losing out on the money for not having it in the meantime, because we're fine for money. Now that annoying Dardanian army makes its choice, it makes the wrong choice, it goes and attacks the more powerful of the two armies it could have gone for here. Thank you very much. However, in this siege defense, while I wanted to do the usual have an element outside the town thing, I couldn't deploy outside the town, and the entrances going in are very narrow. So it's hard for us to break out, and facing a large enemy force, we're going to be blocked on all three. So in an attempt to not be trapped inside the town, I sent units out to secure a passage outside. I was able to get the chariots outside doing this, which is the most important thing to have out there. But unfortunately, when it came to getting the slingers outside, the other thing that would be useful, there wasn't quite enough space. Not only did they get slightly caught in this melee, which is a bit too close to the cliffs behind us, making it hard to maneuver, but units going down one of the other passages just turned over here to attack us, and now those slingers are in big trouble. I'm going to have them all fall back and just give up on the plan of getting out. We've got the town garrison, all of these really tiny, nearly dead units, so I can send them in as sacrifices to buy time and stuff and shore up this area. It's not a good looking fight. All of these two-handed clubmen are bringing us downtown, especially where it's axe troops on our side. This army is mostly clubmen actually, so the fact we're mostly axemen doesn't help us very much. We do have chariots though, of course, and here we get a nice downhill run into the back of this blob, mowing the blob down. As usual, it's much less powerful than it looks, but it still looks interesting. And it does shock their morale. We need to get over here and take out this Jav unit because it's gradually thinning us out. We're holding this enemy blob here, okay, but the rain of Javs will do big damage. The chariots are hopefully on the way already. My slingers are now shooting over some cliffs to rain shots on top of this enemy blob. This is a bad holding position as my Knight Runner axes are going to be super weak against these two-handed clubmen. But they're making them stand still and the slingers are doing their job. Here was a great little move. These barely alive young spears are chasing an entire unit of Javs off the field. So efficient, that skirmish mode really helps us out. Looks like our chariots are now in amongst the other Jav unit that was causing trouble. They're going to go down fast, and once they've dealt with them, they can turn and go down the road into the back of this nice big blob. And now we're going to get a real ploughing action as we just go through unit after unit. There seems to be very little resistance to your chariot attacks. They're kind of like elephants in some of the other Total War games, but somehow even more able to just go through entire formations. Doesn't do much damage, but check out the morale on all of these units. Super low. We're soon going to be able to get a chain rout. I think the rear attack penalty persists for a while, so after the chariots have gone through, the enemy's morale remains down. They'll take a few casualties and get out of there. You might wonder why I'm not fighting the enemy here and am instead letting them kill my slingers. Well, that's the sort of thing I might normally do due to not paying attention, but in this case it's because the battle is going differently to the real experience. In the real battle we were able to hold this central area. Not sure what happened differently, but here the enemy did break through and start killing my slingers. Here's something that went the same in both cases though. That blob over at the top of the map goes downtown. We can chase them off the field and have the chariots kill a bunch of them as well, and then circle around to rear attack other elements. We'll switch now to the real footage where things are looking a bit better than they were just now. We've held the enemy off, our slingers are just gradually whittling the enemy down as they take their time killing us, and that's all we need to do. There's a chain rout over at the southern entrance, and now everything will charge all the way through, taking out those Javs and winning the battle for us. Another case where we'll want to spend a long time chasing the enemy to grab more kills, eventually leading to a good result. We did lose a couple of units. I think the two main ones were early on, where we lost a couple of axemen out defending that southern approach. Nasty stuff, but the enemy lost much more and we will replenish everything else. It's a shame that we did lose some real units though, because as mentioned we don't have the ability to re-recruit them unless we go back to the other side of the map. Would be faster to respec the buildings and make the military stuff we need to recruit a good army. But I intend to attack so soon that I just never make military buildings. I'm always going to leave the province I'm in before they finish building, so we'll just throw in some young spears or something like usual and keep going. Once Diomedes shows up, hopefully that will be the final nail in the coffin for the Trojans. We'll complete the actual objective at some point, I hope, and find out what we're supposed to do to win this campaign. Whatever it is, it should be a foregone conclusion. We're almost guaranteed to do it. And I don't really need to do it at this stage. We've won. I'm just going to do it for completeness anyway, so it can say, you win. I don't know. I'll see you next time. Maybe we'll win next time.